Good afternoon and welcome to Kempsey Shire's public forum. It's the 18th of September 2023. I remind all people attending this meeting that it is being webcast on YouTube with audio and vision. A recording of the meeting is available on the internet and is required to be available for 12 months. Private recordings, including taking photographs by members of the public gallery, are not allowed. This ruling is to maintain the integrity of the meeting proceedings. Please ensure all devices, like mobile phones, are on silent mode, please. On behalf of Council, I welcome all people to the public gallery and observing live on the internet to this public forum. I acknowledge that this meeting is on Dunghutti land, and we pay respects to elders past and present. We also welcome any other Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people with us. I now call for any conflict of interest declarations from councillors or staff. There are no declarations. Thank you. Attending the public forum are Councillors Kerry Riddington, Councillor Simon Ferguson, Councillor Scott Butterfield, Councillor Alexandra Wyatt, Councillor Dean Saul, Councillor Anthony Patterson and Deputy Mayor, and Councillor Kenny Ring. On our video link, we've got Councillor Arthur Bain. Council staff in attendance are Mr. Craig Milburn, General Manager, Mr. Wes Trotter, Director of Utilities, Mr. Michael Jackson, Director of Operations and Planning, Mr. Steve Mitchell, Director Corporate and Commercial, Daniel Thorogood, Group Manager Governance, and I would now ask the General Manager, if he would, Mr. Craig Milburn, to outline the guidelines for this public forum.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In line with Council's code of meeting practice, the following guidelines are for our public speakers. Each speaker will be allowed 5 minutes to address Council. This time is strictly enforced by the Chairperson. Speakers at public forums must not digress from the item on the agenda of the Council meeting that they have applied to address the Council on. If a speaker digresses to irrelevant matters, the Chairperson is to direct the speaker not to do so. If a speaker fails to observe a direction from the Chairperson, the speaker will not further be heard. A councillor, including the Chairperson, may, through the Chair, ask questions of the Speaker following their address at the public forum. Questions put to a Speaker must be direct, succinct and without argument. Speakers are under no obligation to answer a question put to them. Answers by speakers to each question are to be limited to 1 minute. Speakers at public forums cannot ask questions of Council, councillors or Council staff. When addressing the Council, speakers at public forums must comply with this code and other relevant codes and policies of Council. Speakers must refrain from engaging in disorderly conduct, publicly alleging breaches of the Council's Code of Conduct, or making other potentially defamatory statements. If the Chairperson considers that a speaker of the public forum has engaged in conduct of this type, the Chairperson may request the person to refrain from the inappropriate behaviour and to withdraw and unreservedly apologise for any inappropriate comments. Where the Speaker fails to comply with the Chairperson's request, the Chairperson may immediately require the person to stop speaking. The General Manager or the nominee may, with the concurrence of the Chairperson, address the Council for up to 5 minutes in response to an address to the Council at a public forum after the address and any subsequent questions and answers have been finalised.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. We have 5 speakers today. I again remind each speaker you are presenting information which may benefit councillors in becoming better informed on particular decisions that they have to make at the council meeting tomorrow. You may not ask councillors any questions, of course. Our first speaker is Mr. Ken Scotton. He's against agenda item 10.2, relocation of Holiday Park maintenance shed, council recommended location. Welcome, Mr. Scotton. And you've got to find the red light. Yes, you have it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. You've got 5 minutes.
Okay, thanks for allowing me to talk. Following the August Council meeting, where councillors voted unanimously for further community consultation on the Holiday Park maintenance shed, representatives from the Resident Ratepayers Association entered the process in good faith, with the understanding that community expectations would be acknowledged by council staff and form part of a compromise solution to this ongoing issue. Unfortunately, as is apparent in Council's recommendations, nothing has changed in the justification of the proposed location, and no community input has been included in the revised design. So effectively, the entire process was a total waste of time, effort and ratepayers' money for what amounts to lip service community consultation. The alternate location is shown in orange on the latest proposal plan, Figure 1, which a resident ratepayers delegates perceived as a result of the meeting to be an equitable compromise, has now been described in Council's recommendation as being totally unsuitable for a number of reasons. As a reply to those comments, let's explore the positives of that location. The site is flatter, deeper, and does not require extensive civil works, retaining walls or modifications to the road level to transition to the shed slab height. The alternate location is one of the lesser attractive sites in the park and is usually only occupied during peak holiday demand. The shed and awning will fit in its entirety onto the area without modification, unlike the recommended location. The existing well-established native trees between the location and the adjacent fenced car park can remain, except for one small tuckaroo, and provide immediate filtering of view from the roundabout, unlike the recommended location that will still be clearly visible from the street, club and pathway. The location will completely remove any reflective roof issues currently affecting the club, which will not be the case at the recommended location. The alternate location effectively removes the shed entirely from the scenic views as seen from the village centre, club and footpaths. As no cost estimate has been included in Council's recommendation, it can be ensured that the alternate location is as cost effective as the preferred location, even considering that the crane will have to include one additional set down and reposition to shift the shed to the alternate site. The recommendations, locations, cost of excavation, retaining walls, existing road level to slab height transition, and the replacement landscaping at the very narrow area between the proposed retaining wall and the street. That in mind, it could be assumed that the alternate location is more cost and visually effective of the two options. The existing shed slab to be retained as a new expanded garbage area of over 120 square metres is of extreme concern, as it's earmarked to accommodate the numerous 4.5 cubic metre garbage bins directly adjacent to the pathway, which is a primary pedestrian access for both patrons of the holiday park and the public when accessing the village commercial centre and foreshore. How much additional rubbish will accumulate in that 120 square metres, and who will control it with the best interests of the public at heart? Imagine walking past this on the new pathway in the height of summer with the sun beating down on those steel bins that have been sitting there for days full of a concoction of rotting food and prawn heads. What a wonderful welcome to Crescent Air that will be. Crescent Air Resident Ratepayers Association provided an alternate solution to the use of the existing shed, including restriction to a third of its depth to still accommodate garbage bins while effectively negating the stockpiling of garbage, creating a greater separation from the path and the bins while providing a more open vista of surrounding views and easier transition to the holiday park roadway. Once again, community consultation was totally rejected. The last revision of the holiday park concept plan shows a continuous line of cabins along the Pacific Street frontage referred to as required to compensate NRMA parks and resorts for loss of revenue following the loss of a couple of substandard campsites. Considering the cabins return upwards of 10 times more annual revenue than a campsite, then that's a massive win-win for NRMA parks and resorts, who could obviously afford to give up some of those profits to move the shed out of our visual environment. An email from Council Management, the Residents and Ratepayers Association states, and I quote, "In determining the recommendations that we put to Council for consideration, we have to consider a number of factors, including feedback we get from all forms of community engagement and not just the views of one group." Interesting statement, that one. As far as resident ratepayers are aware, Council publicly stated that no community consultation was entered into prior to the vote taken by councillors instructing Council to engage with the Resident Ratepayers Association and the Country Club Management. Should Council now wish to refer to all forms of community engagement, then put this issue out for public exhibition, invite submissions and see how the cards fall. The Resident Ratepayers recommend to Council Recommendation to council is to reject the recommended location, endorse the alternate location, and reduce the garbage dump area to 1/3 of its depth. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scotton. If you've got some time, we'll see if there are any questions for you. I'll ask a question if no other councillor has one. On the alternate location, Mr. Scotton, there will be a requirement of a 5-metre buffer between the shed and adjacent campsites. That will possibly cost a couple of campsites. Do you have a view on the buffer and the effect?
I haven't been able to walk down there in the last couple of days. I'm assuming that the concept plan that shows the cabins now running along there will put all of the existing campsites into some type of reconfiguration. This shed, obviously there are going to be vehicles moving to and from it. There'll be a lot of movement, in that area entirely. What we're talking about here is to trying to get this shed out of the public arena. Moving forward, the concept plan show multiple cabins going into this area. I don't think that shed sitting down there with a loss of a half of a campsite will make any difference at all. There's a tree, actually. If you had a look at the configuration, there are drainage pits on either side of this, not drainage pits, stormwater access pits on either side of that. So it's going to almost create its own clearance. We measured it out.
There's your time, Mr. Scotton. Thank you. I'll follow up on another question, if I may. You talked about the slab and only using 1/3 of it.
Yep.
What's going to happen to the other 2/3 is my question.
I'll put a retaining wall along on the back of the front 1/3 of it and backfill it.
Backfill it so that
just
the slab underneath.
Yeah, lose it. I mean, as I say, if you create that area, then what was shown before when the bins were placed there a couple of years ago and a couple of screens were put up near it, it became the dumping place for all the detritus that came from the camping place sites when they left the site. They threw those fold-up awnings that were broken. They threw chairs in there. They threw stuff everywhere. That will continue on this 120 square metres. And bear in mind that it might be the back end of the caravan park, but it's the front end of Crescent Head Village. And the people will have to walk past this. And it is a public walkway down through there for both the customers of the holiday park and the public that transit through that area. I mean, what a great advertisement for Crescent Head to have a walk through a garbage area to get to the beach.
Thank you, Mr. Scotton. Councillor Riddington has a question.
Thank you very much for your presentation once again, Mr. Scotton. I really appreciate it. That was going to be one of my questions, Mr. Mayor, about the garbage slab and how we could ameliorate that and make it look better or be more functional. So thank you for answering that. Would you like to add more?
Well, I'm a little bit confused about that slab to start with. When you look at a 4.5 cubic metre bin, the height of that slab in relation to the road height, there's a marked difference between both those heights. Somehow you're going to have to put some type of transition in there. You'll never manually, in my opinion, and I've managed a lot of buildings and I've been involved with a lot of the design of commercial buildings and things. You can never manually move those bins through that transition area onto that slab. The slab was also actually pointing the wrong direction to be able to get those front-loaded trucks in to pick those bins up. You have to come in along the road and they have to be at an angle so you can get the forks into them. That slab runs parallel to the roadway. It's almost, I'm not saying impossible, but somebody would have to get there and manually move those bins around when they're full of garbage to try to line them up to get the truck into it. So in reality, that slab, in my opinion, is not suitable for those to house those garbage bins. And to talk about how do you shield it at the back? Well,
thank you, Mr. Scotton.
I could design it.
Question,
Do you have a follow-up question?
I do.
Thank you, Councillor Riddington.
A couple.
And I'm going to Councillor Bain after you finish. Thank you.
Thank you. So in my line of thinking, that to me would be an occupational health and safety issue, moving those bins on that particular slab.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that
and the public, theoretically, the public have been using those bins to actually put their garbage in the past when it was on flat ground.
Yeah.
Now they're going to have to get up onto that slab in between the bins to do it. So, yeah, it's an OH&S issue.
Okay, thank you very much. So where would you put the bins?
Well, when we were at the meeting down there on site, I did mention that the holiday park needs to have a holistic view to what they're going to do with their waste management, because what's been set up there may have suited the past, certainly doesn't suit the present, and won't suit the place when they put all the cabins in. They need to look at the whole park. How do they get their trucks into there? Where do they put their bins without having to mix all of that in with the people who are actually using the park? That's where the problem lies.
Thank you very much. My final question, with your suggested sites, or the resident suggested sites, and the alternative that the council's put up, I'm just trying to get it clear in my head. I'm not a surveyor and I'm not a builder. So would there be better access in moving it to where you'd prefer, or to where the alternate site is?
Well, the alternate site that we looked at that day, and I thought was a good mix between the two, is actually flat. The access off the road is flat. That road runs down, and when you're in front of where the existing site is and where the proposed site, the road has got quite a crown in it.
Yeah.
The reason is that's where all the stormwater runs down to get into the stormwater pits. Further up, where we're asking the shed to be put, the road's flat. So the access to it is flat. The slab can go on. It's a bit like putting it here and be able to drive your car and take your bin straight into it.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor Riddington. Councillor Bain, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Scotton, I'm interested that in reading the business papers, that if we were to look at the alternative site, so there's a site that's been recommended by staff and there's an alternative site preferred by community, there would be additional work in moving the shed. So like where staff are recommending, it would be one crane movement, and where the community have an alternative, it would involve more than one crane movement. Is that? Would you like to comment on cost impacts of that?
Well,
and then I have another question as well, please.
Yeah, look, that's correct, and I can only go back to my project management days. They're going to have to prepare that shed to pick up. They'll have spreader bars there. It'll be ready to lift. In its primary, they're going to need something like a 50-ton crane to pick it up with. In its proposed location, yeah, they could pull it out of one site, and they could slew around and they could drop it on the new site on the proposed area. On the other one, they'll have to move it. They'll slew it around. They'll put the shed down. They'll move the crane. They'll pick the shed up and they'll put it on to the alternate site. You're talking another lift, another set down. You're probably talking 2 hours in a crane with a good crew to be able to do that, because the shed's already set up with the spreader bars to be able to lift it. It's already ready to go. They set it up, they put it down, they pull the crane off, they move the crane over, they pick it back up and they slew it back onto its position. It's not rocket science.
Thanks, Mr. Scotton. And the other question I was going to ask is the impact on. I understand, council staff are talking about using planting some native vegetation to screen and to improve the amenity of it, but the council site would remove the council preferred site would entail removing a melaleuca, I believe, and the alternative site would involve some trimming, but not any tree removal. Is that correct? Could you speak to that, please?
Well, my thoughts is that to put the retaining wall behind the proposed site, you're going to have to basically remove a rather large fig tree in there, and I'd say completely, and you would have to do some extensive trimming to the melaleucas there. I'd have to go back and measure it. However, the shed shown in that location has a reduced awning at the front and is basically sited on the side of the road. So it's sort of squeezed into the spot. How much you need to clear behind it? I'd say most, or a lot, in my opinion, a lot of those trees will go behind it. The alternate The alternate location, there's one poor little tuckaroo sitting there that's probably got a 6-inch 6-inch diameter trunk, and it would have to go. The rest of it can remain, which is the main trees behind that along the fence line at the car park. That's all that have to happen as far as the tree.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Scotton. We have another question from Councillor Ferguson. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scotton. If we, for some reason, tomorrow rule out the alternate provided by the community, given the aesthetic and odour problems with the bins, which I think would be quite significant, what would your thoughts be, and what would the community's thoughts be, in your opinion, of going back to leaving the shed where it is, as opposed to, you know, the visual aspects of a shed are bad, but I think the visual aspects and the odour aspects of having all a slab covered in bins there would be significantly bad as well.
Yeah, look, we've tried our dealings with council. What we've tried to do is have a good open relationship as far as the objection to this shed. I think there are a lot of people in the village who would take a different view. I think they've sat back at the moment and they've watched what's happened. Hopefully that we get a good result out of it. I don't know how the local community would react to that, but I be honest with you, I have not heard one. I've heard one person who agreed that, not so much its location. He said, that's a nice shed, I wouldn't mind having it in my backyard. Everybody else we've talked to, they don't like that shed and they don't like where it is. So I couldn't tell you what the public reaction might be. I'd have to step right back from that one. As I say, we've tried to have a good upfront, concerted, one point of contact discussion with council about that to stop the crazy stuff that goes on sometimes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scotton. We have a question from Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Just on the possibility that this shed stays where it is and there's no further cost to the whole community, what would your thoughts be on if it had to move in relation to the extra cost, being that council, as you see, are dealing with a special rate variation shortly? What would you say to the people in Willowwarren and Bellbrook that would have to also have part of that extra cost, because it is a community cost?
Yeah, look, when I was a child, there was a bedtime story called the goose that laid the golden egg. Now, I think that what you're looking at now with this caravan park, or the holiday park, whatever you want to call it, is that there's going to be a massive expansion down there, and evidently there's going to be a wealth of a marked increase in the revenue from there. I don't quite know how a child's playground in Willowwarren compares to your major tourist attraction in the Kempsey Shire that has a large farm-style shed stuck right in the middle of the major access way between the town centre and the primary attraction of Crescent Head, which is the foreshore area. I would think that people will look at that in future and say moving it out of the way was a good dollar spent, because in effect, had this gone out to public consultation, I doubt that it would have ever been put anywhere near where it is now. If that answers your question.
Thank you, Mr. Scott.
Sorry for talking so loudly, but I'm deaf, so I can't.
Councillor Patterson, have another question?
Yeah, no, I've just got another question, and thank you for bringing it up about that you've seen some pictures of the future development of the Crescent Head foreshore, being the glamping tents and the cabins, etc.
Yep.
Being that this the shed was brought up because it stopped people's views apparently when they're walking down there. Yep. Did you realise that they would also? I'm asking you. Did you realise that they will also stop people's views of the creek? The new glamping tents, because that's why this was brought up.
The tents that came up earlier on the public submission in 2019 or 21 or something. I mean, everybody looked at the ramifications of those. They're caravan sites. They're normally occupied. The glamping tents, I doubt, will be much larger than probably the caravans that were there initially. I mean, people are used to that type of thing. They're not worried about that. I don't think there was a great deal of objection to the clamping tents. I think the shed is, because that shed is right in your face there. I mean, you can't ignore it.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. There are no more questions. Thank you for your presentation and answering the questions today.
Okay. Thank you very much.
As second speaker of the public forum is Mr. Colin Ryan. He's speaking against agenda item 10.3, Council Managed Crown Land Plan of Management and Crescent Head Foreshore Revitalisation Project. Welcome, Mr. Ryan, and have fun turning on the microphone if you can. Well done. You're off for 5 minutes. Thank you.
Community expectations are that the golf course remains a golf course and tennis courts remain accessible tennis courts. Recently, a road was proposed which was met with concern and angst from the community. At the residents and ratepayers meeting, 74 people voted unanimously to reject the road. Crescent Head Country Club has 4,500 members, and the results would be similar. Unanimous support for the golf course and tennis courts. Council were to have the plan of management completed by March 21. The club has long-term plans and has been requesting a new lease for more than 6 years. Original lease was ending June 23, prior to the club being granted an extension. The level of bureaucracy is frustrating. The club would like to make further improvements to the golf course, making it a sustainable community asset, including connecting the 520,000 litres of underground water that has been installed in anticipation of a new lease. Council's motion does not mention the plan of subdivision required to establish a new lease or associated timeframes. By the time a new lease is approved, the club would have spent a decade dealing with Crown Lands and the council for what should be a formality. On today's agenda, council has placed together everything Crescent Head, the shed caravan park redevelopment, cenotaph upgrades, incorrectly labelled representatives of RSL should read Crescent Head Country Club Anzac Committee, Crescent Head Surf Club remediation works, and the foreshore revitalisation works. These are all separate matters, but council has chosen to throw them all in one pot. Council papers continually refer to proposal raised by the community. There is no group openly displaying any plans or engaging with the community. The word community is being misused by council in these papers. Who will be on the community advisory group? The foreshore revitalisation works has nothing to do with the golf course and tennis courts, and it is annoying that this motion attempts to join the two when there is no relationship. The good people of Crescent Head cannot be blamed for having little trust in council when the joining of dots method displayed places worrying conclusions in people's minds. The golf course has been a golf course since the 1930s, close to 100 years. The golf course was in play prior to Killick Creek being redirected in 1956 and the caravan park commencing thereafter. Council cabins did not commence until the 1980s. The golf course is unique, being the only PGA-rated 6-hole golf course in Australia. Changing boundaries would entail altering the golf course, which will mean the club could lose its PGA rating. This will stop all competitions and competitive play. The golf course is the centrepiece of Crescent Head, open space, a source of healthy enjoyment, much loved by the local community, and an important attraction for tourists which benefit the local economy. Over 10,000 people per annum play around, not including others in their travelling group.
1
The
minute.
golf course is used for weddings, funerals, Christmas carols, cross-country, birthday parties, charity days, helicopter pad landings and emergency events. We're extremely concerned there is even a suggestion the golf course could be further delayed. Members in the wider community will be alarmed when they hear even a possibility of changing the boundaries is mentioned in council papers. The club's management of the golf course is welcome and appreciated by locals in the community, and we need the new lease now to get on with improving this vital community asset. The following sentence in council's documents is ill-conceived and intentioned. Resolving any future tenure impacting on land boundaries adjacent to the foreshore designated area would be beneficial in ensuring the future success of this project. There will be no change to the boundaries of the golf course. This delay is unnecessary. Council papers continually refer to proposals raised by the community. Where is the evidence?
Thank you, Mr.
Conducting
Ryan.
community consultation by asking the people of Crescent
Mr.
minutes to go.
Yeah, well, people might ask a question that will help you bring more, but your time is up. Thank you. Do any councillors have a question? Councillor Wyatt, followed by Councillor Patterson. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that presentation. It was very, very succinct. All really good points raised there. I just wanted to, if you can clarify, and if you can't, or clarify your understanding. If you can't, I'll ask council later. You talked about what is the subdivision requirement of the lease?
Once the plan of management has been finished, there's a requirement for a plan of subdivision between the club, between the golf course, tennis court area and the caravan park. It's a Crown Lands requirement.
So as in like a new lot and DP number, or just a boundary adjustment?
Well, at the moment, there's an imaginary line there which has been in place for many years. But it is madness that we are forced to beg to council for a decade and to Crown Lands, for something which should simply be delivered to the community. And that is why you're in the positions you are to deliver on community expectations.
Thank you. Councillor White, any further? Councillor Patterson and then Councillor Riddington. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan, for your presentation. I've got a number of questions. Just offhand, just for the record, is the golf course Crown Land?
The golf course and tennis court area is Crown Land. Currently, the golf club or the club has an order in for a new fairways mower because the current mower is in a very, very poor state of disrepair. That order for the new mower, it is a $94,000 mower. The club has been waiting for a new lease, as I've said, for more than 6 years. How can the club make future plans when it is waiting for a lease for so long?
Thank you.
And for this to be thrown up.
Crown Land. Thank you.
Yeah.
Some more questions. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
You have another question?
I've got about 3 more, if that's all right.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Just in relation to the golf course, is there access to the golf course area for the general public who don't play golf 7 days a week?
As I just stated earlier, it is used by local schools for cross country.
Mm-hmm.
It's used for things like Christmas carols, charity days.
Yep.
It's used by surfers to walk across to go to the beach. It's used by people walking their dogs. Yeah. I think if we put a fence around there, people wouldn't be real happy.
Yeah. And do you have any idea how many members who of the club actually play golf?
We have about 200 golfing members. And you got to remember, when you say they play golf, it's all about friendship. It's all about getting out there with their friends, their mates, whatever, having a game of golf.
Yep.
It's healthy for people.
Very good.
You'd be denying people the opportunity in these current times of a healthy lifestyle.
Mr. Ryan, Councillor Patterson just wanted to know the number.
Yeah, just a number.
Another question, please, Councillor Patterson.
Two more questions. Being that this is item 10.3 tomorrow is about Crown Land Management, Crescent Head Foreshore Revitalisation Project, and this covers like the area where you are. Do you have sufficient parking for the club, thinking of possible expansions?
The problem is that council has chosen to join this to the Crescent Head car park foreshore, and what I'm saying to you is that golf course has been there for over 90 years and has absolutely nothing to do with your car park. Okay, council created this problem when they made changes to the car park, which has nothing to do with the golf course.
Would last question, thank you, Mr. Ryan. Would that golf course area itself, would that look much different and be used by many more people if it had a few barbecues and seats and walkways for the whole community statewide? Could you have access to it 7 days a week? Would it look much different?
It wouldn't look like a golf course, would it? It'd look like a park. And if you want to go to a park, go to a park.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Your next question will be from Councillor Riddington and then Councillor Bain. So, Councillor Riddington, please.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Now, Mr. Ryan, when would you estimate that you would like to see a new lease negotiated? In what time frame?
5 years ago.
No, I don't want to talk about the past. I want to talk about
the future. As soon as possible. Be realistic.
How much would you want it to run for?
21 years. But if you can get longer, we'll take longer. But I think that is, from my understanding, that is the maximum that Crown Lands would allow. But yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Councillor Bain, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is around the community consultation. And do you feel that if you were part of the community action group or that group that is intending to be formed to consult, would that be sufficient consultation for you as a representative of the country club? And I acknowledge that the country club is an important business in Crescent Head, and I also acknowledge the frustration that you have expressed regarding not being able to move forward with your long-term financial plans because of the uncertainty of a lease. But do you think that being part of that consultation group will be sufficient consultation for you?
I think council have got themselves in a quandary with the shed matter, and now they've gone the other direction with community consultation on a matter that is a no-brainer, that every man and his dog in Crescent Head would want to keep the golf course. To throw that open to community consultation and connect it to the foreshore redevelopment just doesn't make any sense in anyone's mind. But if council want to pursue the idea of having a committee, I'll be happy to be on it, but I'm only one person. If council select, I don't know how many people, and they have people with their own agendas on that committee, and they're not representative of the whole community, then it'll be a problem. But if you picked people who are representative of the entire community on that committee, I wouldn't be scared whatsoever, because nobody in their right mind will get rid of the golf course.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. There are no further questions, so I thank you for your...
sorry,
you have a light on?
Yeah, I do now.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Mr. Ryan. We do have another question from Councillor White.
Thanks. I'm just reading the recommendation that is going to be put through to council tomorrow, and it just says note to Crescent Head. That council undertake community engagement regarding the lease proposed for the renewal within the draft plan of management for the Crescent Head for the Crown Lands. What would you like to see there instead of that? Seems you've said you've spoken against that.
I would like council to agree that they should expedite a lease for the golf course straight away, and has no connection to any other parcel of land or any other matter in Crescent Head.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. No further questions? No? Thank you very much for your presentation. We now come to our third speaker. It's Mr. Fred Andrews from the Crescent Head Ratepayers and Residents Association. He's speaking against 10.3 a council-managed Crown Land Plan of Management and Crescent Head Foreshore Revitalisation Project. Mr. Andrews, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. My name is Fred Andrews. I'm president of CROA, but I have been informed that I can only speak in my personal capacity. Item 6 notes that revisions and implementation of the Crescent Head Holiday Park Concept Plan should proceed independently of the matters considered in this report. I recommend councillors reject separating the holiday park from the other Crown land areas which are going to be discussed, not including the golf course leases, for several reasons, including it appears the holiday park already encroaches on other Crown land, and that it would be prudent to wait until the Community Advisory Group, CAG, is formed. Item 7 proposes expanded terms of reference and scope for the CAG group, including areas encompassed by the draft plan of management and proposed land uses and leases, specifically in relation to Crown Reserve 63275. As this includes the caravan park as well as Willow Street Park, surely the scope of CAG should include those areas, including the caravan park, particularly as land boundaries and changes to them are referenced in the report. There are community issues with the holiday park plans we see arising, including but not limited to the following. The manager's residence on the attached plan of the holiday park, number 10. Many in the community are unaware that this historic ambulance station area has been absorbed into the holiday park. How, when and why did this area become part of the caravan park? The design for the 2-storey high building is aligned to the height of the existing tennis court clubhouse. This clubhouse is set a long way back from Reserve Road and is set to be rebuilt as 1-storey only, whereas the proposed manager's residence will be right on Reserve Road and will be very obtrusive at the entrance to the foreshore parking area. I would suggest most will only become aware when the building is demolished and a 2-storey residence appears, at which time it will probably become another fiasco similar to the iconic shed. For items 3 and 5 on the same plan, more information is required as to the style and size of the studio duplex cabins before it goes to expensive planning stage, as cost is critical. The park area in Willow Street is a major issue to community. At what stage is enough cabins to satisfy the constant push for profits? Does community have any input into this discussion? Another new row of cabins has appeared on the Pacific Street end of Holiday Park plan, apparently to compensate the Holiday Park for the shed fiasco. The constant push for cabins totally undermined the last foreshore plans. I agree with Country Club concerns into relation to the leases and the supposed community group. I challenge council to inform us which group these suggestions came from. There is a perception due to supposed community groups' alternative uses, which have been suggested as a through road, parking areas, also a yarning circle, and maybe possibly down the track cabins may be suggested. There is no confidence that council will consider community concerns, as past decisions appear to have been made solely for holiday park profits. Surely with Council CAG Group proposed, all of this should wait until it is formed. This group could be provided the opportunity to address the community and present and discuss these concerns with council. Already there is a perception in the community that despite being told ratepayers may need to pay exorbitant rate rises, over 6.3 million is budgeted can be spent to increase a public company profits in the holiday park. This does not appear to be equitable to the community. Why back yourself into a corner by proceeding with council recommendations to commence holiday park plans separate to other areas? It will only increase community feelings of animosity and lack of trust towards council decisions. This is the ideal opportunity for Kempsey Shire Council to consult with community and rebuild confidence in their management. I am aware there will be a 42-day review available for community comment, but due to the encroachments and issues, why go to the major expense of significant plans at this stage, considering council's dire financial state? I am also fully aware of the disengagement and apathy from community until it is almost too late. This new community advisory group may be an opportunity to engage more residents, and the only loss to council would be time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Andrews. I'll now seek any questions from councillors. Well, Mr. Andrews, I'd like to ask you a question, if I may. You referred to the historic Crescent Head ambulance station. I'm not clear in my mind where that is. Could you?
As you enter the just before the roundabout, where the office for the holiday park is, there is a building there, which used to be
a kiosk. Yeah.
No, not the kiosk. Before the kiosk, so it's further down Reserve Road, heading towards the bowling greens. There's a building there. I think it's occupied now for chemical storage for the campground. It used to be an ambulance station run by the health department.
Okay, thank you. I did not know that. Thank you for improving my geography.
Can I just add one proposal has come up that it may have been an ideal solution to refurbish it and offer it as a part-time police station in holiday period, because we dearly need it. Yes. This is now in the plans for the two-storey residence, for the manager's residence.
Thank you. Further questions? We've got Councillor Ferguson, then Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews. Can I just ask why you are against more cabins?
I think the biggest issue, I'm not sure whether the cabins actually pay sewerage and water, and I think that's a major issue to find out if they do, because there's obviously a huge increase in the sewer and water costs, 40%, I think it is, in the next 4 years for the communities. But I think having an input into where the cabins go, there is a great concern that the cabins or duplex style cabins on Reserve Road will have the same impact as what the shed does. That they'll be there is talk of being two-storey high with car parking underneath, and it'll totally dominate the view. With the advisory group, I believe you would have an opportunity to actually ask community and show them plans, and they don't have to be plans that are going to cost a lot of money. Sketches would do. And I think the other issue...
Thank you. Thank you very much. Councillor Ferguson, no further?
No, thank you.
Councillor Patterson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews.
Followed by Councillor Riddington. Thank you.
Just a couple of questions, Mr. Andrews. Do you think it's a good idea to manage the Crown land parcels in one rather than individually, as they all interact together?
Well, I think you're already separating the holiday park, so I would suggest that we would support strongly the golf course leases going ahead as discussed earlier. I can assure you that there has been meetings held in Crescent Head with up to 75 people at short notice that are totally against the golf course not remaining as a golf course. But I think the community group that you're talking about forming would have a better opportunity of sending feedback to the community, because as I said at the end, the disengagement and apathy of community is extremely strong, and they don't get involved until the last minute when the slab goes down. So I think that would be an ideal opportunity to get feedback going into the community.
Thank you. Councillor Patterson, another question?
Just another question, Fred. This is just another one. Do you know or realise that council only has a few commercial entities to generate income from. These are the caravan parks, the cabins, etc. You know, the council. Do you know that the council generates income from that, so it doesn't have to look at the community for higher rate charges to run caravan parks?
Well, it'd be interesting to find out how much exactly goes into the community to offset ratepayers' money, because all we hear usually is you can't touch the caravan park money because it's on Crown land and it has to be spent back on Crown land. So it obviously doesn't go into paying rates and it doesn't go into paying sewer and water. And as I said, does the holiday park pay sewer and water? The community don't know anything about this, but it's a two-edged sword. You know, you want more cabins, but hang on, it's on Crown land. We can only spend the money back on Crown land. Where's the advantage for the community?
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Councillor Riddington, please.
Thanks very much, Mr. Andrews. I really appreciate your presentation. I'm sorry, I haven't been well and my voice is a bit weak. When we're talking about Crown land and we're talking about perhaps separating the golf course and the caravan park, and we're talking about formulating the Crescent Head Advisory Group, would you welcome the suggestion that we open it up to the whole of the Shire? Because it's the whole of the Shire that would use the Crown land like they use Crown land everywhere across the Shire?
In principle, it sounds a good idea. Like the consultation effort down at the shed, I think you could get too many people involved. I think it could become rather unmanageable. So, look, I know it affects the other areas of the community as far as this Crown land money comes, or the money from the holiday park. It could be worth a discussion, but I think it would be very difficult to manage.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews. One other question from Councillor Bain, please.
Thank you. My question is, Mr. Andrews, is I'm hearing that you've got some concerns regarding the cabins. The problem would be we can't just, there's a difficulty in stopping all work until the advisory group's in place. Does your concern extend to the safari tents as well, or other safari tents?
No, look, I don't think there's any concern with the safari tents, but I think the major concern is the Willow Street parking area, which used to be a green space, is not marked on the plans as a holiday park area. It is now being commandeered by the holiday park. It is now an overflow parking station, restricted parking only, fines apply, completely bollarded. Part of it has been gravelled, and there's been no discussion whatsoever. But that was a green community space, which is now basically controlled by holiday park management. And it's the same with the ambulance station. I mean, how did the ambulance station suddenly disappear from community use to the holiday park? And I think those areas need to be explained before the holiday park forges ahead with their massive plans.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? No? Thank you. Mr. General Manager, you would like to make a statement?
Yeah, in line with the code of meeting practice, Mr. Mayor, just make a couple of points just to clarify some things for the community. The holiday parks do pay rates, including water and sewer rates, so those they are rate payers. You can sit down, Mr. Andrews, because you won't be able to respond to any of this. At the council meeting last month, council resolved that, I'll just read the wording, notes that the amended Crescent Head Holiday Park concept plans will be publicly exhibited prior to being reported to a future council meeting. So they will go on exhibition and we'll receive community feedback on that. What the report today references really is that the areas for the safari parks and the existing cabins that need to be replaced will proceed. That's what that is referencing in the report that will be considered tomorrow. And under the Crown Lands Act, council is obliged in relation to leases to actually go out and put that publicly before the community. It's not something we can actually decide without doing that. So as part of the process, we will need to do that. That's not something we get a choice in. It is dictated to us by legislation. So they're probably the key things. Probably the last thing, the question was about how does it actually help ratepayers. The profits from the holiday parks, council has a lot more Crown land than just what's the holiday parks. So what happens with the profits from that, from the holiday parks, is they do a couple of things. Firstly, they actually assist with the upkeep and the maintenance of the holiday parks themselves to make sure they actually comply with all the areas that we actually need. And then in addition to that, the profits over and above that go into the maintenance of those holiday parks, the rest of the Crown land, so our parks and areas that are on Crown land. By having that holiday park money do that, our ratepayers do not have to pay that. If we didn't have that holiday park money doing that, we would have to have ratepayers money doing that, which actually, that is how they actually directly benefit our ratepayers. It actually puts downward pressure on the amount of money we have to take from our general rates to actually maintain those the Crown land areas outside the holiday parks.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. We'll move on from that address. We'll now come to the fourth speaker, Mr. Dick Pearson, who is speaking against 10.5 Public Interest Disclosures Policy. Mr. Pearson, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. Just for clarity, I'm not speaking against the policy. I'm speaking against one of the 2 recommendations. I'm confident Manager Thorogood has put forward a fair, robust and legislatively compliant policy. As noted in Mr. Thorogood's paper to Council, it is a very important policy. In my view and the view of Kempsey Shire Residents Association, it's too significant for future amendments to be left in the hands of a single person or the executive team. And my comments there apply to any council and any GM, so I'm not singling out the current executive team or general manager. It's a matter of separation of powers. Mr. Thorogood's paper on top of page 36 speaks to the broader public interest. If it didn't have a broad public interest, you probably wouldn't be presented with this policy to endorse tomorrow. As I mentioned a second ago, separation of power, application of policy is certainly in the purview of the General Manager and his executive team. Policy creation and amendment, I believe, rests with Council. Such a policy, and an important policy, the Public Interest Disclosure Policy, it's a living document. It would probably be reviewed or should be reviewed periodically in light of its lived experience. And as far as Kempsey is concerned, I believe it has a symbiotic relationship with open and transparent governance, and that's been an issue that Council for quite a time has often been criticised from. So to have future amendments come back to Council for endorsement, I believe would strengthen public confidence, and it would actually protect the executive team and the GM from any criticism of potential skullduggery. And I'm not making accusations there. I'm just saying it has another benefit. So I would ask you to consider tomorrow to amend recommendation 2 to require future amendments to be put to the Council of the day. I might just end on a slightly humorous note. Being an aficionado of Yes Minister, Jim Hacker was very concerned that he might have breached the Official Secrets Act, and he confides to Sir Humphrey. Sir Humphrey's response is, not to worry, Minister, the Official Secret Act is not there to protect secrets, it's there to protect officials. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson. Do we have any questions, please? Thank you, you've made yourself very clear.
I do have a question. Sorry.
Sorry, Mr. Pearson. I didn't look up to the screen and noticed that Councillor Bain had a question for you. Apologise, Councillor Bain, and apologise, Mr. Pearson.
That's fine.
Councillor Bain, please.
My question would be: I note in the business papers that there's a reference there to the general manager and executive team are responsible for operational details. Councillors are responsible for strategic. How do you see the amendments to the Disclosures Act being a term of strategic rather than operational matters?
Simply because of the importance of this particular policy. Just reading the top paragraph from Mr. Thorogood's paper, it should be noted that an operational policy responsibility for adoption and variation of the policy strictly rests with the General Manager and Executive Team. However, and this is where there's a big however, due to the importance of the subject matter and broader public interest, this matter is being put to Council. Well, if it's important enough for the initial policy to be put to Council, I would argue that it's important enough for any future amendments to similarly be put to Council for Council's interest and the community.
Thank you.
Bain? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Pearson. Again, we come to our final speaker for this evening, and travelling a great distance from Port Macquarie is Margaret Allen, and she's speaking for item 11.1. It's a notice of motion on dementia awareness. Welcome, and Ms. Allen, you're on.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and councillors, for this opportunity to support Councillor Bain's recommendation around supporting key stakeholders in the Kempsey Shire to create a more inclusive community for those living with dementia and their supporters. Following the successful Dementia Forum in Kempsey for Dementia Action Week 2023, the Port Macquarie Dementia Friendly Community Alliance supports Councillor Bain's recommendation. If this proceeds, this support, we would understand it would be going towards establishing a dementia-friendly community alliance or something of that nature in Kempsey. If this proceeds, the support could include from our group in Port Macquarie guidance to allow local groups to promote a more dementia-friendly environment in the Kempsey Shire. In addition, we could provide encouragement to strengthen local support networks for people living with dementia and their carers. It is important that they be included in any group that is established and to be able to give their voice to that project. We would facilitate the connection between the Kempsey Shire and the New South Wales Project Officer for Dementia-Friendly Communities from Dementia Australia. Dementia-friendly community alliances are based on a successful model both within Australia and internationally, run by volunteers, and the aims include reducing discrimination and stigma, increasing awareness within the community, and importantly, promoting inclusion in the community for people living with dementia and their carers. Currently, many services relating to dementia care in Kempsey are delivered from out of area, whereas this suggestion would build on Kempsey's ability to run their own campaigns for people living with dementia. We are aware that there are many people living with dementia in the Kempsey Shire with unmet needs. We would be prepared to offer technical and professional advice about the setup and administration, appropriate governance and general procedures for a new dementia-friendly community alliance should one be established. And this would provide the council with the opportunity to lead the way to become a dementia-friendly organisation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Allen, for your presentation. We have some questions. Councillor Riddington, Councillor Bain and Councillor Wyatt. Thank you. Councillor Riddington.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you so much for coming today. I too support Councillor Bain's notice of motion, and I really appreciate you coming. Now, I can't remember where I saw it, but it's recently there was, I think, Wallara Council. Are you affiliated with that that group in Wallara?
We are another dementia-friendly community alliance, and yes, we are in that we all come under the umbrella of the New South Wales Dementia Australia.
Yeah, well, I think that's brilliant, and more power to you. I have had personal experience with friends with dementia. My question is also, would you see council playing an important role in this, or more of a facilitator's role?
I see them having a key role in this. very much, and leading the way in the establishment and the initial groundwork to be done for a dementia-friendly community alliance.
Thank you. And pulling all those groups together.
Yes. Yeah. And could I say that 99% of councils throughout Australia that have a dementia-friendly community alliance, which there are 126 now.
Wow.
The councils are all on board.
Terrific.
Not all of them, just some.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Councillor Bain, please.
Why is it so important for people living with dementia and their supporters to have to live in a dementia-friendly community?
To live in a dementia-friendly community means that people are accepted, that people within the community will seek more information and understanding around dementia, and that there will be that inclusiveness. A lot of people living with dementia feel very excluded from their communities. There is a lot of stigma and that lack of understanding. And we have actually had contact from residents of the Kempsey Shire who have asked us what is available in the Kempsey Shire for us.
Thank you. Councillor Bain's completed. Councillor Wyatt, please.
Oh, that was going to be my question. I've got a couple of questions, but that was going to be my question as well. Is out of the NGO services in town, the community services in town, who is providing those services?
To offer there are a lot of independent organisations who provide the support and care. There is an organisation by the name of Omnicare that operates out of Port Macquarie that provides the carer respite and carer education and some support. But also importantly, Dementia Australia provide carer support and education programs as well in this area. And of course, there are other organisations that operate with smaller programs. But to bring people together in a support network, there isn't such an entity at this stage.
So the second question is, you're 100% correct. There is a stigma around dementia, and I think it's looked as fear as well, and it's also probably associated with older people, when that's not necessarily the case either. So what does a dementia-friendly community look like?
A dementia-friendly community is one that has education programs around dementia, and people are willing to take that opportunity up. Businesses become dementia-friendly, schools become dementia-friendly, medical services. If you were to go into a doctor's surgery, that would be a dementia-friendly business as well. So we're looking at businesses, we're looking at education programs, we're looking at awareness and a community coming together to support people. So someone who is living with dementia feels that they can go down to their local shops and they would be welcome there. They can go to their local bowling club and the members there would welcome them and support them and understand them.
Yeah, that's so something similar where the beauty industry and hairdressing industry are getting training in how to recognise domestic and family violence. Something similar, so that a business person, someone that comes into their business with dementia, that business person, rather than getting stigmatised or frustrated or whatever it is, or labelling this person harshly, then they would understand different behaviours or different ways to interact with that people. I agree. Thank you so much for coming along and supporting Councillor Bain's motion. 100% agree with you.
Thank you. We have another question. Sorry, Ms. Allen. Councillor Butterfield, please.
Thanks, Margaret, for coming in tonight. This is sort of probably a bit close to myself and quite a lot of the community. My father actually passed away recently, last few years, from dementia. It is a sad disease, I suppose you'd like to call it. What I was also looking at, once they're no longer able to be cared for at home, is there any support once they're put into aged care for them, maybe even staff? Because from what I've seen with staff, I think could be improved. with the way they deal and handle people with dementia, but also their loved ones, their wives? Is there anything sort of once the transition goes to the nursing home?
Can I just clarify? It's support for the carers, the family carers. Often facilities will run programs of education, and they'll try and set up a support network. But there is certainly in Kempsey, in the Kempsey Shire, there is a group that gets together with an informal network that sets up lunches, coffee mornings for carers and past carers as well, and that's an independent group. So there is that available. If that's what you're asking, am I answering your question? And education for staff is a really big issue in aged care facilities, but it's also an important issue for people in businesses as well.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Allen. And that's the end of our public forum for this evening. I thank each of the speakers today for being here and presenting your arguments. I note that each councillor has taken a close interest in what you were saying, and they will use that information in their deliberations tomorrow. So thank you one and all for being here today, and all the best for the rest of your evening. That's the end of the public forum.